Hello and welcome to Cycles of Time, your weekly guide to what's happening on Earth as we make our revolutionary journey around the sun. For time immemorial, our human ancestors have created myths and meanings to help us adapt and thrive as seasons change. Join me each week to explore the intersections of these ancient cycles, from the indigenous medicine wheel to the pagan wheel of the year, the Babylonian and Greek zodiac to the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes. I'm your host, Allison Dale, and this is the Cycles of Time podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to Cycles of Time podcast. I'm your host, Allison Dale, and here we are in the last week of November. Happy last week of November already. Wow. That went by fast. Also, happy week of gratitude and happy Thanksgiving and happy Native American Heritage Day this week. Happy week of power and focus, which are the first two human design gates of Sagittarius season that will be transiting through this week. Happy new moon in Sagittarius on Friday. Happy. Yes, a lot of happies. I tend to greet people with like Happy Monday a lot. It's a habit. And lately I've been feeling kind of self-conscious about the word happy. I don't know if happy is the right word for the times we're living in, as far as kind of like a general consensus of happiness. And I definitely don't want to come across as insensitive by wishing you happiness this week. Happy new moon, for example. So, wherever you are in the process of grief or rage or disassociation or tiredness or overwhelm or manic researching this week, I am here for it and I fully support it. Personally, I've gone through all of these above emotions that I listed in a kind of Groundhog's Day loop for a few weeks now, at least. But as I record this, I do feel happy. And I do believe that we all have the right to moments of happiness, however fleeting they are. I've been thinking a lot about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness lately, with America's Pluto return reminding me to kind of look back at the founding tenets of the country that I call home. As I've been digging into these unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which the Declaration of Independence says have been given to all humans by our Creator, I've been considering the phrasing the pursuit of happiness rather than simply happiness, the right to happiness. I think that when we have the right to pursue something, especially something like happiness that isn't an internal right, we're never able to really be in the present moment. I think that if we're pursuing something, we are hunting it down, and we're always in the state of seeking and dreaming and working towards the future. And paradoxically, the present moment is the only place that can actually hold happiness. And I think that's especially true of happiness out of all the emotions. It's a fleeting, momentary type of thing. And so this unalienable right of the pursuit of happiness kind of leaves us in the lurch, I feel. So as we complete the 248-year cycle of Pluto around the sun that has happened since the Declaration of Independence was signed, I'd like to call for a revision and have it say, we hold these truths to be sacred and undeniable, that all humans, regardless of their gender, race, or class, are created equal and independent, that from that equal creation, they derive rights inherent and inalienable, among which are the preservation of life, liberty, and daily moments of happiness. So, yes, have you felt any moments of happiness in your day lately? I think that it's important to acknowledge those and to hang on to those. Lately, I've been feeling happy in my body for taking my kids swimming almost every day this week and kind of just moving around in ways that I normally don't move in the wintry months. I'm happy that I got to celebrate my grandmother turning 98 last week, a few days after my daughter turned 6, and just see this scope of life that's so beautiful. I feel happy that I feel clarity and alignment with myself and my purpose after many years of confusion and heartbreak as Pluto changes signs into Aquarius. There's definitely been like this moment of clarity that's come through with that's made me feel kind of happy that I've learned a lot over the course of Pluto and Capricorn. I'm happy that I can always think of things and people, mostly people actually, to be grateful for. And I'm feeling happy to have gotten to be in conversation over the past week with some really powerful, deep, and inspiring people. This past week, I was honored to have the opportunity to be a guest on one of my favorite podcasts, which is called Moon to Moon, and it's put out by Britton LaRue, an astrologer that I really like. And if you're not familiar, Britton is an astrologer who focuses on the work of unshaming. Britton holds space for people to kind of move beyond the stereotypes of the zodiac and the shame that many of us feel related to each sign's archetype so that we can embrace our authentic desires and truths. And kind of using that analogy of shame to move beyond the stereotypes. I'm a big fan of her work, so it was really fun to chat with her about cycles of time and about the 6 human design gates of Sagittarius season that are coming up, kind of the story arc of those 6 gates. So you can listen to that episode. I'll post it in the show notes and on the Substack as well. It's a fun conversation. And the day after I chatted with Britton last week, I also got to have another beautiful conversation with a truly embodied Sagittarius sun, who is my qigong and martial arts teacher, Jaye Marolla. I've been studying martial arts, qigong, and what she calls yin warriorship with Jaye for a couple of years. And I've been truly transformed by the practice and her way of teaching. And the way she brings powerful people together in movement. She creates these beautiful spaces and containers where just a lot of unspoken, nonverbal power comes into the room. And so Jaye's birthday is coming up this Sunday on December 1st. And her sun is in Sagittarius in the human design gate of focus. So in your conversation that's coming right up, you'll hear about her life path that truly resonates with both the determination of the gate of focus and also the adventurous, traveling, and seeking qualities of Sagittarius. She's a philosopher and a traveler and a mover for sure. This is the gate of focus, where the new moon in Sagittarius will happen on Friday as well. So with the sun moving into the gate of focus on Tuesday, we have a lot to talk about. But before that, we are in the gate of power this Monday and Tuesday when you're listening to this. And so I'll talk a little bit right now about the gate of power. And if you'd like to jump ahead to the conversation with Jaye and I about power and focus and all things yin warriorship and Sagittarius, I'll post the timestamp in the show notes so you can jump ahead to that conversation. But before we do, I'll just do a little quick roundup of this week's highlights in the Wheel of the Year and a little bit about the Gate of Power, which is our current sun transit right now. So this week's highlights: Monday, November 25th, Mercury stations retrograde. So the power and focus of a typical Sagittarius season might feel a bit subdued or more internal than external because Mercury will be retrograde all the way through Sagittarius season, pretty much. And, happy Thanksgiving travel plans. Just plan extra time for your travel. I am traveling to New York as this is being released. And so, I'll keep you posted on how that goes. But just build in some extra time and just know that that's happening. Never anything to worry about. Retrogrades are all about re's, which are like the redos and the rephrases and the reassessment and the revisions. And, so it's looking back. And so it's a time that happens 3 times every year, like clockwork, and we can always expect it. So it's definitely nothing to jump out of your seat about, but just to consider. On Saturday, November 30th, we have a new moon in Sagittarius in the Human Design Gate of Focus, like I mentioned. And then this week in the Human Design and I Ching Wheel of the Year, we are in Gate 34, the Gate of Power, from last Thursday through this Tuesday. And from Wednesday the 27th to Monday, December 2nd, we're going to be traveling through Gate 9, the Gate of Focus. And that's Jaye's birthday gate. This week's themes include true strength is embodied self-assurance, not forcefulness. And another theme is focus on your goals through small actions. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with the ground beneath your feet. And funnily enough, that phrase just kept coming up to me. It's a Lao Tzu quote that a lot of people think of as the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And that is true. But what I really liked about the actual literal translation that I found, that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the ground beneath your feet, is that the journey that we're on doesn't start with our step. It doesn't start with our action. We've just come out of a deeply transformative Scorpio season where we learned a lot about our ancestors during Samhain and Halloween time. We learned a lot about how we can merge with others, the way that the living plant matter, like the leaves, merges with the rest of the soil as they fall to the ground this time of year. And so the ground beneath our feet, this kind of underworld, this soil of Scorpio season that's being created, is really where our journey begins. So just wanted to throw that out there. And today I was actually in a sauna at the community center here in Santa Fe and just walked in there, had no idea they had a sauna. And I stepped in and there's this amazing conversation happening between all of the people in the sauna as they dripped sweat. And it was a man from Nigeria who's been in the US for 20 years and has really made it as an artist and a filmmaker. He's worked on a lot of famous Hollywood movies and gotten a lot of recognition in his home country of Nigeria. And a lot of the kids that are inspired by him when he goes back home are like, oh, how do you do that? Like, I want to be like you. And so his thing that he's about to move back after 20 years in the US. And he was saying that he wants to go back to teach the youth about slowness and about how nothing happens overnight and how he's put a lot of years and a lot of time into his art and a lot of internal work. And so he was talking about how in Nigeria, there's a lot of social media and cell phones and like this quick fix, want to get famous and rich fast kind of mentality. And yeah, so it was so cool to hear him talking about this to this other woman who had lived in Gabon, and they were sharing stories. And I was reminded again of this quote that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the ground beneath your feet. And that is definitely like the theme of this week. Sagittarius is all about the journey and shooting your arrows out toward the horizons. So, we do that. Let's follow it, but also recognize everything that's come before us and beneath us. So in the other wheels of the year on Cycles of Time that I track, and again, you can always find this diagram on my Instagram at Cycles of Time Podcast or astro.somatics or on the Substack, which is free to subscribe. And if you'd like to receive this in your inbox every Monday, this podcast with a lot of great interviews and just tracking the wheel of the year, you can sign up at astrosomatics.substack.com. And I always post the diagram of the wheel of the year, kind of where we're at in that. But in the medicine wheel this week, we're in the direction north, which is the direction of wind, elderhood, and spirituality. In the whooshing cycle, which we'll talk about quite a bit in the conversation with Jay, we're in the element metal, kind of reaching the end of metal before we enter the season of water. We're in the pagan season of Samhain, the zodiac season of Sagittarius until December 21st on the solstice when we will enter Capricorn. We're in the moon phase, new moon in Sagittarius on Friday or Saturday in Gate 9, the Gate of Focus. And again, in Human Design and the I Ching, Gate 34 on Monday and Tuesday, which is Thunder over Heaven or Great Strength, aka the Gate of Power. And then from Wednesday through Sunday, we move into Wind over Heaven, Gate 9, which is called the Taming Power of the Small or the Gate of Focus. Again, jump forward to, if you're here for Jaye Marolla, I completely understand why she's a badass and amazing. So hi, Jaye, if you're listening, and everybody out there that has come through your links. But before we jump into Jaye, I will get a little bit into the gate of power, the gate we're currently in, because I feel like last week we talked a lot about the last gate of Scorpio season with my guest Z Clark, and I recommend going back to that conversation. It was really awesome as well. But that was the gate of power skills, gate 14, that we were in until Wednesday of last week. And we talked mostly about that on the podcast because Scorpio season deserved a good roundup. But so this week I can't move forward without talking a bit about the gate of power because it's an important one and it's personal for me. I have both my unconscious and conscious Jupiter in the gate of power and my conscious Uranus in the gate of power. And so there's a lot of planetary activations of this right now. So I couldn't just skip it. So let's just go into it a little bit and then listen to the gate of focus conversation with Jaye. So anyway, power. Yeah, how do you resonate with that word? It's a big one, especially right now. And the gate of power is, to me, a beautiful jumping off point for Sagittarius season because I feel like it cultivates all the deep inner work we did in Scorpio season and it transmutes it, kind of like the phoenix coming out of the ashes, to a new part of the zodiac cycle. As a sign, Sagittarius is well known for their power, and they're both exalted and shamed for it. I'd say in its shadow frequency, the energy of power can be experienced as force. And force is using power to try to do something that's against the natural flow of things, like trying to force a square peg in a round hole, and it often doesn't work out very well. I think that in the West, we oftentimes consider power as force. And that's something that through my studies of qigong with Jaye, I have reframed that in a huge way. And it's an embodied way of reframing what power means. And it's been super powerful to do so. You'll hear more about that in our conversation. But I'd say that we can also experience power in its gift frequency, and the shadow and gift frequency, again, are from the Gene Keys, Richard Rudd's analysis and spiritual contemplations on the 64 gates and hexagrams of the I Ching. So again, the shadow is force, but at the gift level, when we stop trying so hard to force something, we experience power as strength. And as strength, that word can also, has a lot of different interpretations. But in its true essence, I'd say that strength is effortlessness. It's like Yoda said in Star Wars, do or do not, there is no try. And true strength comes from the feminine, the yin, the inner, the below ground. Strength, like if you try to throw a punch and it's just coming from your arm, it's going to fall flat. It's not going to have the force. But if you actually pull that punch from the earth below all the way up through your legs and you have the proper stance and it comes through your dantian, it comes through your belly and your, sex organs, and it comes through your heart and you're pulling that power up and then it's coming out through your arm. It's a whole different experience, right? And so it's coming from this place of below and yin. And when we think of strength as outward force, we realize that it can easily be overtaken and kind of stopped short. But strength that comes from the stability of our core and our spine and our breath and our roots, that is access to an unlimited reservoir of inner strength. And it's kind of all about strength of the whole cosmos through complete relaxation and trust in our roots, and trust in our hearts. So once we identify where we're being forceful in our lives, we can kind of reorient to that and bring true strength into it, which is not the same as force. Like I said, personally, I have my conscious and my unconscious design Jupiter and my conscious Uranus in the gate of power. And this is just, different readings of the birth chart in the human design system, for those of you who aren't familiar. But basically, Jupiter in the sky when I was born and Uranus were both in this part of the sky called power, as well as 88 days before I was born in my design, kind of the end of my mom's second trimester when I was in her womb, Jupiter was also there. And so Jupiter expands everything it touches, and Uranus brings sudden lightning bolts of insight. So over the past few days of feeling into this gate of power, I have definitely been feeling this transit. Like, whoa. I don't know if I've felt this in years past during this time of year so much. It feels like I have through looking back at pictures and journal entries, but I never knew that this was a time when I was so activated with these planets, except I knew it was in Sagittarius, didn't know when. Anyway, I'm feeling it this year, I will say that. And I've felt this deep inner power and strength and self-assuredness, and I couldn't be more grateful for the timing of this transit. It's been really, really nice to feel this in this moment. And Richard Rudd of the Gene Keys says that strength lies in self-assurance, in certainty from the cells of the body. It feels truth in every cell. As humans, when our spine became vertical, we became more mental, but we lost the primacy of our heart centers that used to be more forward when we were other types of apes that we evolved out of into bipedalism. But so we used to have this kind of heart center primacy, like a lot of animals do. But he says when our spine became vertical, the mental, our brain became more of the focus point. So when we are deeply anchored in our bodies and our roots and within our centers, we feel truth in every cell. We have a radiant field of strength around us from that feeling in each cell in our body. And when we know at the physical level, then the answer is always so simple because it doesn't come through the mind. You don't have to force anything because you already know everything, and it's through the wisdom of your body. He goes on to say that this is the emanation of our inner strength. It's rooted in our core stability, in how rooted we are in our life purpose. The moment we're in alignment with life purpose, higher purpose, we can access unlimited inner strength. Then we have the weight of the whole cosmos behind us. So that's from the 64 Ways by Richard Rudd. I have been contemplating how force and strength have been showing up in my life a lot over the past week through the lenses of my Jupiter and Uranus in the Sagittarius gate. And in the body graph in human design, the gate of power and strength, this gate is in the sacral center, and as is the gate of focus, which is coming up at the end of this week. So these are gates that connect the sacrum to the emotional solar plexus. And I've deeply appreciated this reminder in looking at that to stay embodied and to trust my cellular connection to the cosmos as a definition of strength. I've heard that through the Gene Keys and through diving in deep to the astrology of Sagittarius, which I've been writing a lot about. But it was also appropriately the underlying theme in my conversation with Jaye Marolla, whose business name and Instagram handle are The Body Innate. So true to the worldly nature of her Sagittarius sun, Jaye spent significant years in Ghana, West Africa, China, Thailand, Central Asia, and England, studying and attuning to how other cultures express movement and approach their day-to-day lifestyle. Jaye is an educator, a somatic practitioner, a holistic body worker, and a martial artist. She currently offers classes in her home dojo in Santa Fe, and she also consults privately with groups and organizations, offering somatic programs in person and online. She's also a wonderful Thai body worker. I've had the privilege of experiencing her Thai body work, which she has studied so much for and is just deeply attuned to that. It's amazing. And she does therapeutic massage and also one-on-one qi diagnostic sessions. So she is a lifelong student, a true Sagittarius in the sense of reaching out into the world to learn from people from all around the world. And true to her sun gate, the gate of focus, she is a dedicated disciple. She's studied jujitsu, aikido, iaido, taiji, qigong, and kung fu, yoga, contact dance, improv, and Thai massage. And she brings her deep focus to her dojo with the mission of empowering others through radical self-acceptance and connection to their own innate generative resources. So as we move through this week, the week of November 25th through December 1st, power and focus are at our side. Whether or not you have these gates activated by a planet in your body graph, and if you don't know, reach out to me at Cycles of Time Podcast on Instagram or through my website, AllisonMarieDale.com, and I'd love to chat about it. I'm going to start offering readings soon in all of this, but I don't have anything officially set up as far as bookings, but I'd really love to dive in. I'm having a lot of fun diving into people's charts and teaching about this stuff. So if you're interested, hit me up. I'd love to chat with you. But regardless, again, of any activations, all of us right now are experiencing this solar transit through Sagittarius and the gates of power and focus. So I think you'll really enjoy and learn a lot from Jaye's deeply embodied perspective. So let's get into the interview. So I'm sitting here with Jaye Marolla in my living room, and so happy to have you here to chat about all things your birthday and about what you do out in the world as a somatic practitioner and a qigong and martial arts instructor and a bodyworker. And welcome to my living room.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Happy to chat with you.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I met Jaye, I think it was like 2 years ago almost, when I found out, I heard from a friend that there was this really cool offering in town called Yin Dojo, and it seemed like all the cool kids in town were going to be there. I was like, oh, and this person's going to be there, this person's going to be there, and I had no idea what Yin Dojo exactly was, but I was inspired by the word yin at that point. It was a January offering, and I was feeling very inward, but wanting to move my body, and the concept of Yin Dojo was like this really interesting combination of words that really drew me in. And so I showed up at your studio and just loved what you had to bring to the table as far as your philosophy and the type of movement that you brought through. And from then on, I've been, just inspired by you and a student of yours, and just feel really lucky to have you in my life as a teacher. I'm curious from your point of view or your, words, what it is that you consider yourself doing in the world. What is your offering? And what are you excited about right now?
I'm excited about so many things. I'm excited about really framing my work in this moment as somatic activism, in terms of just moving away from a lot of the patriarchal structures that I actually trained in. And some of the dojos and different places I trained were brilliant in terms of the knowledge that I was able to get from various teachers and systems, but I feel like it was also very male-led and structured in a way that male body people tend to lead, which is very different than a feminine collective energy of shared power. So that's really the ethos and the essence of what I am interested in transmitting at this point, is being a teacher, but really being a practitioner with other practitioners in the room, and leading from the collective energy of what the room actually is desiring together, and encouraging movement through murmuration, through, if we're herding together as bodies in a room, what happens as Allison is present to the room. And I think we've moved a little too far into a sense of our own individuation, actually, in movement classes. It's become, I think, quite transactional and compensatory. And so the way I desire to be leading is where we diffuse some of that sense of the individual and actually really come into a shared breath experience, knowing that we're co-regulating together, knowing that when I witness your power come through your body, I can feel the tone of my own strength, my own power becomes more available. And I think all of this is very old. I don't think it's new, but I think it's been lost in terms of the consumerist way that Westerners tend to teach things and go into movement practices.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. Beautiful. I mean, yeah, I've heard you talk about, nothing against yoga, but on a yoga, you're on your mat and you're in your world. And to be in a space where you're, palpably interacting and affecting the space and the people around you, it feels very different to be in that kind of environment. And it's interesting that you mentioned this now because Pluto just moved into Aquarius yesterday from when we're recording. And it's a big shift. It's been in Capricorn for 16 years, this outer planet that's kind of all about revealing the depths of that part of the sky. And so in Capricorn, that's the sign of, the sea goat, this animal that can go from the depths of the ocean to the top of a peak, but it is very individual and achievement oriented and kind of about how we're showing up in the world as individuals. Whereas Aquarius is this collective energy that dates back to, the water bearer being a person who dug canals between different areas of a community to connect and make sure that everybody has water. So I just love that that's what your focus is now is, I love somatic activism. That's a beautiful way to frame it.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And yesterday felt a massive day to me. I taught qigong yesterday and I could really feel, I actually started class with an initiative for my students to really start moving their own qi. And I was just holding a posture and asking the room to kind of, show me what you have and take that risk of responsibility for your own practice. And that's a big thing, because people come into a class and we've been scripted to see ourselves as passengers, I would say, or tourists in a movement room. And I'm just interested in that way of teaching. And I also feel like it actually can disempower people because they are giving away their agency and projecting their deep belief of empowerment onto the individual teacher. And that creates, to me, the narcissistic frame of leadership that we're inside of. So to move away from that is really important. And anyway, yesterday was an incredible energetic day. And someone mentioned astrologically what that shift was after class. And I always feel very close to those astrological shifts as a qigong practitioner. I don't always track them, but it's always inside of my practice and movement space on some, level, because you're working with the cosmos directly as a qigong practitioner all the time.
Yes, I love that you say that. The microcosm and the macrocosm.
Yeah, that's what you're doing. You're just enacting, embodying on a cellular level the stars in you and the faith that there's so much beyond that we actually can reach.
I love that. Have you always felt that way, connected to the stars and the cosmos and through your body, or how has this shown up for you?
I've always felt connected to nature, I would say, through my body. But growing up in Virginia, in the South, there's a very different culture, right, around body, energy. Those weren't, energetics. That wasn't language that I was learning from a young age. I was an athlete. I was always embodied, but thankfully my mom's wisdom was that we would go down to the river every Sunday, and that was sort of our church, because we were not churchgoers in a traditional way. And so I think there was presence of that, but a lot of it for me was moving to the West Coast, but then living outside of this country. And just that, I think, was permission for me to start conceptualizing a greater understanding of spirituality, of kind of inner wisdom and knowing.
Yeah. The West Coast, definitely pulls that. Yeah, that's a good jumping off point. And then what other parts of the world have you experienced?
I lived in Ghana, West Africa for a year. I lived in China for 6 months, and Thailand for 3 years, and England for a year. And I traveled a lot throughout Central Asia and various parts of Asia.
Nice. Wow. Yeah. What part of China?
I was in Shanghai.
In Shanghai, okay. I lived there for about a year, Shanghai, and then the southwest part of China, and like Guilin area.
Guilin, yeah.
And it's interesting that you mention, teaching qigong or teaching like kind of more Chinese or East Asian martial arts from a perspective of more communalism. Because when I was teaching English over there in China, and found that a lot of the reverence that the students had for like the Lao Shi, this like teacher who was up on a pedestal, was surprising to me because I was 24 and I did not deserve that kind of reverence, especially from a lot of these students who are older than me and professional, and and so I felt really kind of called in to like, okay, I have to own this being pedestalized in a certain way, but there was a certain amount of I think it just felt different than how education had felt in my experience of kind of being more on that ground level. But so I'm curious about, I know that you've talked about the origins of kind of Taoist origins, and I'm curious where the philosophy branches from that you teach from in your courses.
So many things at this point, so many origins sources, I would say, but the sort of largest threads, studying Thai bodywork with a Thai teacher in Thailand. And so the Thai form of animism that I think came through inside of the study. I mean, there's obviously, Thailand is very much a Buddhist culture, but I think in most places I traveled and lived, there's the older roots of any of the spirituality really feel very animist and beautifully animated in the temples, the food, the style of body work, all of that was very alive.
Yeah.
And then I would say I studied Hakoryu Jiu-Jitsu, which is a Japanese style of Jiu-Jitsu, and there was more Shinto and animism inside of that pretty esoteric framework of martial arts. And then Moga Dao, which is a study that I moved here to Santa Fe to study, and there was a deep Taoist spirituality and understanding within that. And then, so all of those studies, pathways, teachers, and then just receiving the medicine, receiving 3 years of Thai body work in my body is the most profound teacher, ultimately, I think, that I had, as well as, receiving acupuncture probably for 15 years now. So Taoism as a frame and a philosophy is fascinating, but as a medicine that lives inside of acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine, that's it to me. Like the potency of what you experience on someone's table and getting to link that with the philosophy so I can feel the meridian channels light up. And then taking the application and doing qigong, so then you're activating the embodied state of receiving that type of medicine.
That's so cool. Yeah, it's amazing how, as Westerners, we can often get so in our heads about things. Well, what's the framework? What's behind this? What's the philosophy? I know I'm guilty of that for sure. But I do remember when I first started studying with you and practicing with you, there was a lot of the things that I'd been thinking about just started to come through my body in this way that I was so amazed by. It felt like this epiphany that I had done my embodied practices on one side and then kind of gone back into my intellectual pursuits or spiritual pursuits. And there wasn't necessarily a bridge. as much. And now I can, through qigong and the martial practices that you bring, especially because you do sometimes talk through them while in the moment you're practicing. I remember just feeling that complete mind-body connection and knowing what that was really for like one of the first times in my life. And just like you said, being able to feel the medicine in the body before labeling it as something with words feels.
Exactly. I mean, I think it's not really yours until it's in your body, and it's great to have, these understandings sort of great in the mind. And Westerners, I think we approach things very much that way. But to me, the proof is in the body. And the main sort of limitations, I think, to Western culture in this moment is really a lack of absorption and a lack of integration. So that's, to me, the reason I call it Yin Dojo, and a lot of my work in Warriorship is focused on the yin aspects, is because of that. It's a response to a culture that is not absorbing, integrating, participating in the field of yin, which is where everything gets to land. Land, be absorbed where the uncertainty is, where the unknown is. And we're so pitched towards a yang way of being and an activated state that not a lot can get in, So I like to focus on the alignment inside the body where there's spaciousness around a concept, but so we can really tactily also be playful with what is that knowledge and test it a little bit. I think all of these wonderful, studies that have been around for thousands of years that we're also attracted to as Westerners, we're all people researching things with their bodies, and like trying it out and seeing what can you feel inside of your own system through meditation, through any form where you're breathing and making a shape. So I like to, to me, the dojo and a place of study in this way is very much just researching, trying things on, seeing what works for you. What's Allison's alchemy in this moment of her life, just like you do with the astrological approach. It's so specific to each person, what's going to actually allow their vitality to start surging, percolating, being activated in their life and creativity.
Ooh, nice. I'm curious if you could, for the people out there listening who are not that familiar with yin and yang, I kind of take for granted how much of my vernacular that is now. But I think I remember talking to, I think it was my grandmother and my mom, and kind of talking about it's like yin yang, the yin yang side was how that came through at one point. And so even the pronunciation of yin and yang,
right.
I think was confusing for, I think it was my grandmother. And so I'm just curious what you would say about yin and yang as far as those primary building blocks of dark and light, or how would you explain it?
Totally. It's very important. I'm so steeped in it. It's easy to miss that one. But I would say, yin is the darker essence, the moon energy. It's also the realm of quietude and spaciousness and possibility, and the ocean is yin, and I think it's important also to name that it's not really gendered. We associate yin with a feminine aspect, and that's true, and it's not. We all have access, to yin and yang energy, of course, because this is the energy of life. Right. Is and the other most important thing to say is that they're not separate, and we tend to transpose a binary of a Western mind onto these energetics that are yin is constantly becoming yang and yang is constantly becoming yin. It's an interwoven Taoist principle. Yes. And yang is more the activating essence of life, the willingness to risk. The external, the articulation of my hands as I'm speaking is yang, right? So it's a more outward energy that is creating possibility. But it's really those two harmonics together, and again, that's a lot of what I focus on and with is if we have a solid foundation of yin being the ground, the earth, then our capacity for yang is much clearer and much more reliable. Yang being the sky, mountains are yang. So I could go on and on.
I love it. Yeah. No, this is it's so helpful and so beautiful just to get to the basics and say, what is this? Because, I think about when I was in elementary school drawing the yin yang symbol and thinking it was like a very popular thing in the 90s, I think. Maybe Lisa Frank brought it to the public or something. There was something that was like this popular. And I remember being like, I'm going to get a tattoo of that. That's the coolest thing. There's a little bit of white in the black. There's black in the white, but still not quite really understanding it beyond the symbol, but even just that beautiful symbol that is a cycle, it's a circle, it is you can see in the image that it is a ever-flowing, non-stagnant image. And so, having started this podcast and Cycles of Time, the title came to me kind of in a dream, and I woke up and was like, I think all these things that I've been kind of intaking and absorbing really from astrology to the whooshing cycle in qigong, the different seasons and different elements that come through in that practice with you. It all started to kind of come together in this way that was like, oh, this is all about the cycles of time. It's the wheel of the year, the wheel of the month, the wheel of, larger space-time. But I'm curious how you relate to just the word cycles or how cycles show up in your life and your practice.
Great question. I think I had a pretty profound realization when I started deeply studying Taoism. And, my understanding is, we say the 5 elements, we say the creation cycle, but really a better translation is the 5 phases. It's indicating movement. It's indicating cycle. So they're really phases of life, phases of the body in terms of the psychospiritual nature of organs as perceived in Chinese medicine. And what I love, like how that resonates with me is it is inherent that people were trying to make some sense of the transitions of life, whether that's the stars or the seasons or somebody's life to death cycle or the constellation of a family. All of that to me is just a beautiful emergence coming from pattern. And so that's how I think I relate to it in a practical way in terms of what I'm teaching, in terms of how I see my own life and understand my own cycles of existence and time. And then this beautiful indigenous frame of like, oh, this is what people have been doing historically for so long. And part of the challenge and problematic nature or lack of nature in Western culture is we've created a medicine system that isn't a medicine system because it's not based on a cycle. It's actually not based on patterns. It's based on eliminating a pattern as it arises. Essentially.
Totally.
Your symptomatic expression is a pattern. It's the key in most other indigenous medicine systems. And if you're trying to bury the key, then you're actually moving away from health, I would say. So, yes.
Beautiful. I've never heard it explained that way as far as, that allopathic symptomatic-based medical system, why that doesn't work in that. But hiding the key, that is really profound, actually. I think I love that you mentioned, the 5 phases versus the 5 elements, because they are elements, right? It's wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And so they're elemental things, but to categorize them as elements makes you want to have it be a distinct thing that you can hold and separate from other things. But the whole point of that system, this 5-element system that's, in Chinese medicine and qigong and very steeped in a lot of ancient culture from the East, is the phase basis. I think transitioning the phrasing to phase, it makes so much sense because it is always in transition, one to the next. And and it is and isn't tangible, right? Just like the organs that align with the elemental phases are and are not tangible, right? There's an exploration inside of that system that goes way beyond the physical organ to the psycho-spiritual nuance of what that organ is and does and symbolizes. Yeah. So, it can feel like a little bit flat in terms of when we attempt to transpose sort of the Western, which can be beautiful, but also very linear. If you just think about kanji in any culture, it's like this is a language, a pictographical language that has imagination, spiritual context, all built into one, dimension, right? Which then brings all these other dimensions. Yes. So when we're sort of attempting to me, it's like, oh, well, of course you'd have to sort of imbibe that type of study and have it in movement and have it in art and have it in all these different ways, because there's so much dimensionality just inside their language relative to ours. Oh, yeah. I've heard that, both hemispheres of the brain are activated when you're speaking or writing, just participating in language, in, the kanji, the character-based languages. Whereas in the, Roman alphabet, it's very left hemispheric. Exactly, yeah. And so I thought that was fascinating tidbit. But, I mean, you're right, it's like the great art forms of China. It's like this, I remember learning about, calligraphy and qigong and how they're actually one and the same. And it's about this type of movement that embodies the flow between things, where it cannot be separated and parceled out, I guess. So, so interesting. I'm curious if so your birthday's coming up on December 1st, right? Yeah. So happy early birthday. Thank you. And this episode will be coming out during the week of your birthday, when the energies of your birth week are kind of activated. And so I'd love to talk about kind of how you speaking of these phases and elements, if there's any of these elements within that 5-element cycle or 5-phase cycle that resonate with you as far as like being relevant to this time of year in Sagittarius season in late November, early December. Is there? I mean, so autumn, even though I'm kind of cusping, away from autumn towards winter with a December 1st birthday, but I am deeply metallic. I certainly resonate with the autumnal phase of metal within Chinese medicine, and that warriorship and kind of willingness to look deeply in the mirror, and the reflective. I have a very reflective nature, I think. So all of that feels tremendously true to a lot of my nature. It's taken me, I think we teach what we need most in terms of our own medicine. So it's actually taken the last 5 or 6 years of deep study of my own yin body, and my own yin, moving away from yin, to allow that in, which is, winter being the deepest time of yin. So I think the Sagittarian nature from a Western zodiac side for me is like there's a lot of fire alive in my system, and to alchemize that fire, probably the deep study of yin has been
quite necessary.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Yeah. So metallic, that is, the autumnal, and then you're going into water for deep winter. And so is metal a yin element or phase, or is it yang?
My study would say metal is actually the most yin and yang. It's the most alchemic. It's the most transformational of the phases.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Whereas, winter would be more deeply yin. Spring would be a yang. Summer as a full yang expression.
Yeah.
And then, autumn as sort of both. And then the transits between the seasons are all more earth.
Right. Earth is that transitionary, and kind of late summer as well, right? I consider myself an earth baby, being born in early September. It feels like not quite fire and it's not quite metal yet, but it's in that place where it's in between and very earthy and harvest oriented.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I love just reflecting on this. I mean, I've made these little cards for each, and a few keywords with metal within this cycle are roots, reflection, the direction west, kind of contracting energy. And in the cycle of the year with like plant life, it would be this withering kind of energy of kind of coming inward, bringing energy inward. Grief as an emotion, and kind of the courage to show up in your heart and process that grief. The life phase of elderhood, kind of coming into a wisdom and a stillness with metal. The lung and the large intestine or body parts that are associated. So flashcards for the women.
That's great. I love that. Yeah, and I'll just add, discernment, right? Like discernment. The metal phases can be symbolized by the sword in terms of its yang qualities, which is separating this from that, what I desire in a life, what I'm ready to release. And then symbolized by wings in terms of yin. So it can be, there can be an ecstasy with that amount of composting, right? Like there's a lot of gestation of composting in this season.
Absolutely.
But it's a hard fought ecstasy. Yeah. So there's flight that can happen, but not without a deep level of rigor.
I love that. Yeah, the sword and the wings as different elements of, or different manifestations of metal. I love that you mentioned composting, because the way I look at the wheel of the year in a big way, and all of these systems from the human design wheel to the astrology to the 5-phase cycle, is through the lens of ecology and how plants are changing over the course of the year, and to be able to witness that and participate in that process through gardening. And this time of year is, Scorpio is all about the depths and the kind of like hard freeze. It's fixed water, so it's this like hard freeze that can kind of aid in the composting process of the soil by, freezing and then thawing and freezing and thawing. And then Sagittarius is mutable fire. And I equate that to kind of controlled burns happening this time of year. And in a lot of indigenous cultures, when it gets cold enough and there is that permafrost, or at least cold enough to not risk a huge, fire taking off, there have been a lot of controlled burns around this time. And to me, mutable is like moving and changing, and fire,
like
just
that
putting that together.
Fire.
Mutable fire.
Yeah, that's me.
Right. Yeah. I feel it. Yeah. But it adds to the compost too, right? It's like by burning things, it's like that adds to the quality of the soil and the depth and the richness. And through having that discerning process of actually cutting it apart or burning it apart and breaking it down. And so I think it's just really fascinating to look at the actual physical world as far as all of this symbolism for these different systems of thought that coming from, like you said earlier, that place of deep connection to the earth and the sky, because we didn't really have any other choice. Many years ago, there wasn't an opportunity to turn on the lights or, not farm your own food. Like it was just what you did. And so bringing it into that, thinking about how Sagittarius as mutable fire is also the type of energy that would, in a controlled burn, break open certain types of seeds that wouldn't be able to break open, like their husks or their cask, without fire. It's required for certain types of plants to be able to propagate. So it's just like this additional layer of breaking things down so that they can be born again. But yeah, speaking of Sagittarius, I'm curious how you relate to that archetype and that sign, being a Sagittarius sun.
Well, and what you're just saying, I love that. I haven't heard, well, the mutable fire, but also the breaking open seeds. You know, a lot of the way I'm teaching at this point and getting to a point where I'm integrating, you know, 30 years of somatic study into my teaching is allowing myself to be the force in the room that's giving permission for people to experience their own power. A lot of the way I contextualize my teaching is I wish to create an atmosphere where people can access their own power and their own surrender. And that is essentially what you just named around the fire working with seeds. You know, it's like, okay, are we bursting open to a catalytic sense of our own command? Or are we breaking open into grief? And they're both important. And that's very alive in the rooms that I'm working with right now, where, you know, it might be a catalytic sense of power, or it might be tears. And they're all mutually inclusive and important. And whatever phase your body and emotional state is on, the importance of letting it ride and letting it out and being in a container where that feels comfortable. So yeah, I think I see that certainly in my teaching and my body work, because I'm also doing body work. And for sure, in a sense of somebody who's, you know, just traveled and been so informed by other cultures and countries, and, you know, I think the willingness to risk and live in other places and really absorb the deep wisdom that is, you know, can be found in non-Western cultures.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's so Sagittarian too. Travel, just like shoot that arrow out and go and don't look back, right?
Most of my 20s and 30s was exactly that.
Same here. I have all my outer planets pretty much in Sagittarius. Neptune, Uranus, and Jupiter. So I feel a resonance with Sagittarian energy of just that lust for, like a wanderlust or lust for the new horizon, kind of like what is out there to be, really learned and the depths of what you can learn from going off to new horizons.
One of my favorite definitions of martial arts is to orient to disorientation, because that's really what it is to train martially. You know, you're upside down, something's happening, all these different things are happening physically, but you are training to orient to a new orientation consistently. And when I moved back into this country, I recognized, I had been doing that through all my travels, and I really enjoy that interplay of, okay, what does this mean? And how much you have to listen to your gut and your instincts when you're traveling and just trust your body. And then coming back to the States and really starting at that point, it was 2012, it's starting to dive into martial arts and recognizing, this is a way I can do this and maybe stay in this country.
So cool.
And have a daily practice and experience of a healthy disorientation, you know, a healthy stressing of the body. I think that's also a little bit being lost in our culture of comfort.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I resonate with that so much. I just, it's almost an addiction to like be out of your comfort zone and have to solve the most basic fundamental survival problems of just like, where's the light switch here? How do I do this? And like, it's, for me, travel has been something that is like, you're able to see these greater wisdoms because you're bringing it back to the basics of like not taking things for granted, about already knowing how something's going to go. And so I love that analogy with martial arts of, literally, I mean, you've shown me how to do some tumbles and flips and back rolls, and it's, it's not easy to, when you're literally upside down, to have that as a challenge of being comfortable in any of those positions. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah. And the information that can come through inside of a practice that's aimed at that. And I think it's in our DNA. We're meant to be a bit uncomfortable. We're meant to stress the knowing. And that's also part of yin, is just aspects of uncertainty and mystery. And I think we all deeply long for that as much as we long for security and comfort.
I think so too. Yeah, I can see that. Aside from travel and putting yourself out of your comfort zone, is there anything else with Sagittarius, that archetype, that has jumped out to you in your life? Or I'm curious always about how people learn about their sun signs, because, I think a lot of people find out about something and either cling on to one thing or have shame about another thing. And, it can be so oversimplified, I guess.
Yeah,
but I'm always curious, how that shows up for people over the course of their lives.
I have this print of an archer in my dojo, and I think that, that's kind of like a very obvious one, but sometimes we miss the obvious thing, and I think warrior archetype and just like lust for life. Like I have such a lust for life, and I think that comes in through my family system, but a lot of my like, oh wow, not problem, but it's like, is it okay to be this joyful? Is it okay to have this much sort of abundance of chi? And I've designed my life that way, and I cultivate that, but also that is also my nature. Yeah. And I think that's a lot of the Sagittarian aspect of just like, there's a lot of hope in that as well, a lot of connection to hopefulness.
Totally. Yeah, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. So Jupiter's this giant planet of expansion, and just kind of expands everything it touches. And so it is that kind of just joy de vivre, lust for life. And I definitely see that in you. It is interesting, your sun is in the 12th house. Do you know much about that, the houses? And
is that Mars?
So the 12th house the first house is ruled by Aries traditionally, or and the 12th house would be ruled by Pisces as far as an association. Okay. So the 12th house is like, it actually is a very yin house, I would say. And so it's interesting having this lust for life and this expansive Jupiterian kind of situation in a house that is kind of, it's the house of spirituality. It's a house that can be represented by kind of a Neptunian, kind of underworldly, or like in the ocean, like you mentioned, yin being very oceanic. It's this kind of place where everything merges together. And if you're looking at like the cycle of like a life cycle of a plant, it would be the deep, rich soil that the seed is nestling in, and then Aries right after that, or the first house right after that, would be when the sprout pops up above the soil and starts kind of a new cycle of life. So the 12th house is this deep, rich, verdant, like dank soil that's like growing things and holding things and able to hold, contrasting things. So having your sun there, it does. It makes a lot of sense. I find myself, I like love 12th housers, and find that most people I've ever had deep friendships or relationships with have had like their sun or other planets very strong in the 12th house. So I think it's just, that deep ability to access that place where life merges with death, and where there's not an end or a parceling out of different frequencies. It's all kind of swimming together like the two fishes. So
absolutely. When I think about when I first was introduced to qigong, which was in my early 20s, and it is always sort of an oddity to me in some ways that it's stuck. Like I just learned a form and I kept doing it for literally like 13 years. I didn't have a teacher. I didn't know where it came from. There was no information around this form at that time online. And, qigong is very slow, and I'm not a very slow person because of that Sagittarian, fire energy.
Yeah.
But it really took hold, and I think it's exactly what you're saying. It took hold because of probably that connection to depth and Pisces, and I think I've always had that capacity inside of the reservoir of Sagittarian fire. So that feels very true.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. When I look at your human design gate, it also really, that it kind of lines up with qigong. I've noticed as I was researching it a bit. And are you familiar with your human design sun gate, perhaps?
The sun gate, you'll have to remind me.
Yeah, so in human design, where the sun was in gate 9, the gate of focus, when you were born.
Okay.
Does that mean anything to you? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I do remember that from a reading, and I think I remember having this conversation around like my ability to focus is alarming. It can be alarming. It can be kind of a lot for other people around me, even to like sort of be in that field, even if I'm, not teaching, but studying with somebody else, there's an energy of my focus that is quite palpable to other people.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that was part of what I remember about the reading. And I think it's, learning how to utilize that as sort of a contagious energy as a teacher is fun, but also balancing it with a fair amount of playfulness has been a humbling sweetness to learning how to teach well. Is like, okay, we can't just stay in the focus thing. Like completely, there has to be some breath and spaciousness and jokes and banter, which I've gladly brought in. Yeah.
Right, but you do have the ability. Have you always had that ability to focus throughout your life?
I say this, I've told my students this, when I was 12, I decided I would be getting a Division I college basketball scholarship. And my favorite t-shirt read on the back, "Basketball is life."
Nice.
So having a singular focus or a singular aim is certainly part of my nature, and it's taken me more as I've aged to diversify actually my focus and have something overall that I'm working on, but also allowing it to fill different cups and like to be in different houses of my life has certainly felt more healthy, but the ability to focus is very much there.
That's so interesting that's always shown up. Basketball is life. The rest is just details. I remember those.
Totally. Those shirts.
I remember those. They were like, they had all the things. That's pretty, that's great. I think of focus as like, it's a Sagittarian gate. So there's, 6 gates per zodiac sign in the Wheel of the Year. So six of these I Ching hexagrams or energies. And the first gate in Sagittarius season is power. And that's coming up at the beginning of the week when we're going to release this podcast. And then midway through the week, it shifts to focus. So it goes from power to focus. And I think both are very Sagittarian. Obviously, power is like the centaur, the archer, someone with a lot of power. Legs are associated with Sagittarius as a body part. And so it's like, I think of a horse and powerful legs. I'm just like, yeah. But then focus is like, the ability to shoot an arrow at great distances and then follow it to the horizon. It's this kind of energetic, built into that archetype. And so seeing focus in that way of like, choosing your goal, choosing your destination, and then going for it. Sounds like that's shown up for you.
A lot.
Yeah.
I've always done that. And I think, to me, one of the sort of commingling essences between power and focus is actualization, and that is something that I'm aware of, my own sort of energy around, okay, power is great and focus is great, but it's more the combination of creating the arc of where am I headed, what am I doing, why, and what is the truth inside my own blueprint in a Taoist term that is enabling, wanting to activate right desire in my life.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. The way I've heard it described, this gate of focus is the Lao Tzu quote that is a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And I think it's actually more accurately translated to the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the ground beneath your feet, which is the yin space. And I love that too, but just really, you know, not trying to always be focusing so far out on that destination or that horizon, but having it, you know, one step at a time, having the focus to take one step at a time. But then there's this story about how, you know, if you're so focused on taking one step at a time that you might be walking, you know, in a circle on like from one stone to the next, and they might be in a circle and you wouldn't notice that you're going in a circle until you actually look up. Right. And so it's this, you know, within this gate and within this energy, it's about kind of learning how to look up, look out towards the horizon, and then look back down and, you know, make sure that you have that direction, but that you're still taking things one step at a time. And it also has the energy of kind of the flapping of a butterfly wings that can cause a hurricane kind of vibes, where it's about it's about that like one small step in front of the other that can help you get to these much larger places.
I love that. Well, I definitely identify with stepping in that way, and for a long time have always been more drawn to pilgrimage than tourist, you know, in terms of traveling. And even now, walking is a very important source of integration for me. And I require a lot more movement than most people in a day.
You've said that.
So it's like finding 6 or 7 hours of movement. And thankfully I'm, you know, doing vocations that allow for that. But it's the feeling of like a lot of steps feels right for me in terms of just understanding my own life. And that's part of how I process. And for sure, you know, there's many moments where I think I have forgotten to look up and then, you know, become conscious of like, oh, okay. Because I like to work, you know, I think that's part of the energy of my design is just a willingness to be in process and to be working in a way that I don't have to leave that state actually too often.
Yeah. I looked up your chart, and your rising sign gate is the gate of ambition in Capricorn. So that makes sense too.
That's all there.
That you're like, okay, like, so you have, both of these combined could really lead to that. And so the fact that you're bringing in more intentionally, more playfulness, more banter, more breath, and more slowness is, shows a, important piece there. But knowing that you can put the blinders on and really focus towards your goals, I mean, it's really impressive. It's something I envy for sure. I have a little focus, but tend to get pretty distracted. So, are you familiar with the gene keys interpretation of? Okay, so human design is the 64 gates that are based on the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes, from about 5,000 years ago is the oldest version of that, but it's probably older. And so this human design wheel of the year is explicitly based on those. And the gene keys is another thinker, philosopher who's taken these 64 I Ching hexagrams and translated them into similar interpretation to human design in some ways, but also a little bit more what he does. His name is Richard Rudd, who wrote this book, which is really dense and a lot to it. But what he does is he breaks the energy of a gate into 3 different levels. So you have the shadow level, which is like your survival instinct. And then you have the gift level, which is like your gift to the world, your service, and how you interact with the world. And then there's the siddhi level, which is kind of the level at which you surrender to that energy, and it just becomes like a transcendent part of that energy. And so I'd love to read you these words that to see if they stand out to you. Basically, the shadow of gate 9 is inertia. The gift is determination, and the siddhi is invincibility. So, do any of those?
The shadow is
inertia. The gift is determination.
Determination.
And the city is invincibility.
Yeah, that resonates. I mean, I think I have a tremendous amount of determination. Like, will to me is something that's quite, like, it's just there. I've had that, I think, my whole life. It's very intact, and I'm pretty sure that also shows up in a different part of my human design chart. And then the last one, sorry.
Invincibility.
Yeah, I mean, invincibility is interesting because I don't feel invincible at all, but I feel the strength of the warriorship archetype in me actually being really harmonized by understanding how fragile it is. And when I think and feel into my bones around warriorship and what it is to be willing to risk your life for something, how fragile and vulnerable that actually is, that composition is, I think we think of warriorship as being invincible, but it's actually like so much more complex. And so I can take that on in that way. And then the inertia it's not actually familiar to me in terms of an energetic. And I don't know if that's a constitutional or my life has always felt in constant movement, even when I'm deeply inside of a yin space. It feels like, God, there's so much happening.
Yeah.
You know, because that's sort of one of the most cosmic places that we can be.
Yeah.
So yes and no, or
Right.
I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah, but maybe I think
constant motion sounds like inertia. I mean, it sounds like a place where there's always something.
There's always something
happening
going
in the next step and the next step. And I think that the difference between the inertia of just going with what's pushing you and then looking up to that horizon, and then the determination or the will to choose which you're going to be moving, right? No matter what. So it's like, which way are you going? And so I think moving from that shadow of having the world pushing you, or like just flowing, jumping in the river and flowing wherever it takes you, and then deciding to be determined to get to a certain place, having that singular focus of basketball or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I will say, I think, of course, so many things come in at different phases of aging, and I think there was a lot of my life more that felt like someone else at different points might be writing the book that I'm inside of. And being in constant movement and catalytic energy, but not necessarily where I might desire to be in terms of relations or context.
Right.
And I'll be 44 on this birthday, and feeling that I am holding much more intention around the direction of that movement at this point in my life, and then that has taken a while.
Beautiful. Yeah. I feel like a lot of times with these shadows of the people that I've talked to in readings and on this podcast, and with myself as well, it's so interesting to see how it is with aging, with experience, and with knowledge, that you can have the same energy. It doesn't change. The frequency isn't changing, but how you're relating to it. And whether it's, just learning how to survive in that, and then saying, okay, how can I take this energy and do something with it that is going to serve me and help lift me up. So that's cool to hear you say that. I loved hearing you talk about, the city, that invincibility and the complexity of what that might mean. I think the way that they talk about it in the Gene Keys is that invincibility is like, it's related to the infinitesimal, like the infinite, and how you could take a string and pull it apart an infinity amount of times and get it smaller and smaller to the point where it's actually, the microcosm and the macrocosm connect, because the smallest of the small becomes an atom, and then that atoms make up the entirety of space. And so it's this invincibility in the way of connecting to both in that complexity, and knowing that both the micro and the macro are involved in invincibility. And through the yang turning to yin and yin turning to yang, I see that coming through in your teachings a lot, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in a formulation of resilience, I think it's a real sort of primary thing I'm attempting to teach and to embody, is a resilience that probably is closer to what you're saying there, around the combination of energies, and the truth of sensitivity leads to the potential of surrender, leads to the potential of power, and that is a form of invincibility, kind of on a more cosmic level.
Yeah, beautiful. I'd love to read you a short passage about this from the Gene Keys, because as I was reading through it, it really struck me as something that felt so related to your teachings. And so it says, this is about the ninth city of invincibility, and it says, at the highest level of consciousness, levels themselves disappear. Outer space becomes inner space, time becomes infinite yet absolutely present, and all boundaries are absorbed by consciousness itself. Now, the moment something loses all boundaries, it becomes two contrary things. It becomes simultaneously defenseless and invincible. Invincibility can therefore be defined as merging your individual awareness back to the consciousness of the universe. To be invincible is to surrender to all possible foes by dissolving your entire reality into them.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it struck me as very, just that flow of energy that's always happening, the chi flow, and by accepting that, we're becoming invincible in that certain way. So
absolutely, and the non-duality composed in all of that.
Yeah. About you, it says, these people that have the ninth gate have discovered that the entire universe exists in a microcosmic form within the human body, and they may become teachers of this truth. In this respect, they can be masters of techniques wherein the macrocosmic can be mapped into the microcosmic. Such people become the focal point for an intense frequency of divine light with very specialized tasks to fulfill on Earth.
Sounds like a qigong practitioner.
Yeah, it's the Gene Keys compared to human design. They're very different as far as they're how they come across. I would say this is very philosophical, poetic, but I just loved mapping the macrocosmic onto the microcosmic, and how earlier in our conversation you mentioned feeling the cosmos in your body, and I don't think everybody can tap into that.
It's taken me a while to recognize that maybe not everyone's on that frequency, and yes, I absolutely feel that, and I think I have felt that from a young age. I remember being out in nature, and just Walt Whitman was one of the first poets who really pierced my heart. And I was 13, and I was just like, like the procreative urge just landed so strongly as something that I felt deeply in my body, but I saw everywhere in the natural world. It was all the same, it was like, this is the same thing.
Absolutely. My church was nature too. My parents were kind of like fundamentalist anti-religion in this way of having, I was like, I know a lot of people that have had experiences that were challenging with the church in their lives, but mine was like a generation removed, where it was very much like, we're not doing that. And so I remember asking questions about church when all my friends were getting going through their catechism or different. There's a lot of Catholic upbringing here that has a lot of ritual surrounding it, so I kind of wanted that as a kid. I was like, where's mine? Where's my first communion? What do you mean? Totally. I don't get this. But I remember hearing, nature is our church. God is in nature a lot, and I've really taken that, to heart over time, and definitely resonate. Thank you so much for being here. This has been so cool to talk to you, and I'm curious if you have any other just last words of wisdom or insight for people who are coming into Sagittarius season and the gate of focus this weekend, just experiencing this energy that's familiar to you. Do you have anything to say to...
I think, thank you for having me. It's been really delightful to have this conversation. And I would say, in terms of, Sagittarian, and I think even my, the name of my practice is called the Body Innate. And I do believe that our bodies, all bodies, actually know innately what they need and want. And so I think my encouragement would be to give your body some space to feel into what it might need or desire, and trust in that. Yeah, it's that simple.
It is that simple. It is that simple. Yeah, you do it so well. Knowing that you spend that much time in your body and you've prioritized this your moon sign actually it's in Libra, right? Your moon. I have the same moon sign as you, the moon gate, and it is called the determination of the self. But it's really about finding yourself at the right place at the right time because you trust your embodiment and you trust your body. And so when I looked at that on your chart, I was like, oh, that's so cool. That's, it seems like you're very led by your moon, which is, which also represents your body and your emotional awareness. And so, yes, embodiment for the win all the way.
And letting the mind be quiet sometimes and take a back seat, And that's a huge practice, of course, of mine and what I teach. But I think it is interesting to just see where your body wants to go. You can have body days where you just let your body lead you around town.
Oh, the best. I want to do that right now, the rest of my day.
See what happens, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Allison.
Thank you. Yeah. Can you let everybody else out there know how to find you or what offerings you have?
Yeah, absolutely. My Instagram is The Body Innate, and I am teaching here in Santa Fe. 4 classes a week. Monday and Friday is Yin Dojo, all genders. And then Tuesday and Thursday is qigong, also all genders. And all my classes are 9 to 10:15. And then once a month, the first Sunday, which is actually landing on my birthday, I teach a silent qigong class, Sundays from 6 to 7 p.m. And then all other stuff you can find on my website, which is just jayemarolla.com.
Great, and I'll post all of that in the show
Thank you
notes.
so much.
Highly recommend Jay's classes. That last silent candlelit one was so powerful. So definitely check her out. And thanks again so much for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for being here for this episode of Cycles of Time. I can't believe I've been doing this podcast now. This is the 39th or 40th episode. It just keeps on coming out. So I'm deeply, deeply appreciative of everyone who I've gotten to speak with, to Jay for this episode, and to everyone out there that is listening as this listener base continues to grow. Thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to be here with us. I will say that, if you are interested in contacting or working with Jaye in any way, I highly, highly recommend her work and her teachings. And it's mostly in person, but check out her website again at thebodyinnate.com. And one special event that I wanted to mention that she has coming up soon on December 7th, next Saturday here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, is a Yin Warriorship offering. It's a pop-up Yin Warriorship offering at her dojo in downtown Santa Fe. And it is all about Taoist practices for embodying the eros of winter and the element of water. So again, we're moving kind of from the element of metal in fall to the element of water, which is about deep receptivity and rest. And so this is how I came to her work through Yin Warriorship a couple of years ago. And it's just was a beautiful launching pad into a whole new definition of power, like I said. So it is called Yin Warriorship and the Sensual Body on Saturday, December 7th from 3 to 6 p.m. And it's $75 for the workshop. So I hope to see you there. If you're in Santa Fe, check it out. She's on Instagram at The Body Innate. So you can find more information about that there and register there. So the quote that she shared in regards to this is a Joseph Campbell quote. And it says, "People say what we're all seeking is a meaning for life. I think what we're seeking is an experience of being alive, so that our life experiences on the purely physical plane will have resonances with our own innermost being and reality, so that we actually feel the rapture of being alive. Ooh, good one. I will end with that. Thanks for listening. Again, you can always find me on Instagram at astro.somatics or Cycles of Time podcast, or subscribe for free on Substack at astrosomatics.substack.com. And I will see you next week. My next transmission is going to be coming from Brooklyn. So that's always an interesting one because a lot of inspiration in the big city. So I'll talk to you again next week. See you all then. Bye.